US Vice-President Kamala Harris has embarked on her first Asia trip with stops in Japan and South Korea. It's the Vice President's second trip to Asia since she assumed office in January 2021. Harris is in Tokyo for the memorial service of former Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. She'll lead the presidential delegation in place of President Joe Biden at the state funeral, which takes place on Tuesday. The US Vice President will be in Japan for 3 days. Well, earlier today, she met with Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida, and the two leaders condemned China's actions in the Taiwan Strait. The island is a self-governing democracy, but Beijing views it as part of its own territory and has pledged to reunify it with the mainland, even if it requires force. Recently, in an interview, US President Joe Biden pledged to defend Taiwan if China stages an unprecedented attack on the island. The White House later clarified that the US policy towards Taiwan remains unchanged. Reports say that Harris will also meet with South Korean Prime Minister Han Duck-soo during this trip, and she'll visit South Korea on September the 29th and will hold a number of roundtable meetings. It comes as ties between Washington and Seoul have come under scrutiny recently. The South Korean president was caught on camera insulting American lawmakers soon after his meeting with President Joe Biden. The duo had a discussion on multiple issues, including US electric vehicle subsidies that South Korea wants to change. Yoon Suk-yeol has denied insulting US lawmakers, saying it was an incorrect translation of his remarks. He further added that this alleged mistranslation will not hamper diplomatic ties between the two countries. Well, Kamala Harris is also scheduled to host a roundtable discussion with some of the leading women of South Korea. Now, this is a delicate issue in that country, as the newly elected president has faced immense criticism for being allegedly sexist.
And a belief that help is on the way.
Susan Tehrani joins us now, our correspondent in New York. Susan, what more can you tell us about the Vice President's trip to Asia? What will be her message?
So Kamala Harris's trip really comes as at a very sensitive time for the United States, notably after, for the fourth time, U.S. President Joe Biden said that U.S. troops would defend Taiwan should China attack the island. So while, as you rightly and perfectly mentioned, the outline of her trip and her itinerary, U.S. officials prior to her trip spoke to reporters and said that the main focus of her trip will be Taiwan. Now, in what capacity? On the one hand, outwardly, she's going to try to send the message of America's one China policy. But since we've seen time and again in recent memory that lawmakers on the part of the United States have visited Taiwan, one can't help to wonder whether or not she wants to garner some kind of support for U.S. policy towards Taiwan, and whether or not there'll be kind of a shift or not. We also heard that the United States is working on some sort of a sanctions package against China, and that's something that not only the United States wants to work on unilaterally, but it might want to expand to a multilateral framework, and it's going to be discussing that with these countries as well. But, hammering in again, according to that official, talking to reporters, really the central focus is going to be Taiwan. Taiwan has become really a very hot topic subject, not only for the United States, for China as well. And the stronger alliances that the United States has in the region, the better. Now, what it plans to do and how effective Kamala Harris is going to be on this trip is yet to be seen. I think a lot of people are holding their breath to see what she's capable of doing. But nonetheless, we'll have to wait and see.
And Susan, so Taiwan is clearly going to be top of the agenda, but what other issues will she touch on when she visits Korea, for example, this electric vehicle spat that's going on?
Right. So you talk about the electric vehicle issue. You know, that's something that for the United States, it's extremely important. They've been talking about, you know, hammering home and bringing home that climate agenda, not only here, but here at the United Nations as well. They try to work for, you know, not only the messaging and the optics of it, but also because the electric vehicle is one aspect of it, and that's the optics of that is going to be very important for the Biden administration and so-called climate agenda. But then you have supply chain issues that this administration hasn't been able to resolve. And it really is a global phenomena. And while the United States has tried to work with China in some capacity, it's realized that that hasn't been the case. And I think that Kamala Harris's trip is really going to have a trade aspect to it as well, not only in South Korea, but Japan as well. But again, you know, that official speaking tried to really also bring home the message that the reason she's going first and foremost is for the funeral of Shinzo Abe.
Susan Tehrani in New York, thank you very much.